Welcome, everyone. And the fact that we have got so many on the call just means that you are looking for solutions when it comes to literature review. Because I know doing a literature review, it just takes so much of us. It is where you need to put your bum on seat. You need to have read so many papers. You need to understand them. You need to synthesize all this information into one thing. And it is definitely a daunting task. Now, today we're going to look at how SciSpace can work as a research assistant alongside you. Now, I want to just add our a few disclaimers and a few warnings, gentle warnings, I promise. So we all know that AI is here to stay, and I do encourage people to use AI because it is a tool that can really make us more efficient. It's a tool that can really help us put that literature review together, but we need to be in charge. So we need to remain the brain behind it. So think of the concept AI assisted and not AI generated. So your literature review needs to be AI assisted, not AI generated. But then your question may be, but why don't we just let it be AI generated and we copy and paste it into our work? So the chances are very good that you are putting together a literature review for a dissertation or a PhD thesis, or maybe even writing an introduction section for a paper. And if you are going to be the author of that dissertation thesis or paper, you are saying that the work that you've done is your work. It's your voice, and that's what you've put together. So if you copy and paste from another source, is it really your voice? There's also a lot of dangers where facts need to be verified always, always. Even if you worked with a research assistant, you would verify what they've written because you are the one that take responsibility for the work. Also, do remember that as you go along and you use any AI, whether it is a general language model or whether it's SciSpace, note when you've used it and what you've used it for. Um, because most universities by now have got declarations where you have to declare how you've used AI. And we've heard of a few cases where students' work have been flagged for AI use. And then the best way to defend your case is to show how you've used it, which means that keep your chats, keep notes of when you're using it, how you are using it, so that if you ever need to refer back, that you can confidently state, look, this is how you've used it. It's all legitimate. It's appropriately used, and this is how what your output has been. So just be responsible in how you use it. And then now that you know how to be responsible, enjoy the assistance that it will provide you and think carefully if it's going to save you time where it may find you articles much faster than in the past, having to maybe delve through different databases. Um, and if it's going to help you read articles faster because you can ask questions to the PDF, um, you can highlight on the system. What are you going to do with that time that you've saved? So think carefully of how does this shift the way we work? So we'll leave that argument. What happens to that additional time? We'll leave that argument for now. Ideally, that time needs to find a balance somewhere where you can maybe put more time into generating the arguments and strengthening the literature review, and as well, maybe some time for personal well-being. But do think about that. It's an argument on its own. Let's delve in. So today I'm going to show you my process of doing a literature review. I've got a quick set of slides here. So, firstly, we're going to start with the plan it part. So, always when you do a literature review, make sure that you plan well. Diving in and just starting to write, I promise you, that's where you end up with that hands in your hair, where you just feel totally overwhelmed. You've gone down rabbit holes because in research by now, you know, rabbit holes are real. Um, you've gone down rabbit holes. You've realized that, oh man, I've started in this area and now I've ended up in a way different area. Um, it just wastes a lot of time. So if you plan well, that's the first thing I want to. So put some planning time out. And I would say 2, 3, 4 hours. So enough time so that you don't feel rushed. Um, that's the first thing. Schedule it in your calendar. And that's what I mean with set yourself up for success. When you are working on your literature review, on your dissertation, your thesis, any other sections, um, having slots dedicated to your work is one of the biggest predictors of success and progress when it comes to um, the, the thesis, completing your dissertation. So I would say schedule dedicated time in your calendar. It may be 2 hours every second day, an hour a day. Um, Make sure that there's, depending also if you're doing it part time or full time, your postgraduate studies. And so have a consistent working rhythm throughout the week, if it's at all possible. And then to get additional momentum, every now and again, schedule a full day or a 3 day writing retreat. You don't have to go anywhere, but it's almost like what I'm trying to say is small bits of blocks every day, and then longer stretches of really deep work, which is a full day or 2 or 3 full days next to each other. Now, how you're going to use this advice will really depend on all the different domains in your life that you need to balance alongside your master's or PhD or the research work that you are busy with. But that dedicated time is really important. And then the next bit of advice is when you work on your literature review, when you get to the end of that session, before you close your laptop, take a sticky note or use your own system, whichever whatever it looks like. Before you close your laptop, take a sticky note and write down exactly what you're going to do, where you need to start when you open your laptop again for tomorrow's session or the next session when you are working, so that you know exactly what you're going to do. For example, you've ended up finishing with uh, the effect of age on lower back pain. You've completed that section, but you didn't have time to double check the references that you've inserted, or maybe add a few additional references. Then you add to your sticky note, um, double check references inserted to age, and start with gender section. That just means that because you know exactly what you're going to start with, the chances that you're going to procrastinate and next time when that session comes along, um, that you're going to postpone it or maybe faff to try and get back into it, you just reduce that risk of procrastination, the risk of putting the session off, or the risk of wasting time having to plan on that day. So set yourself up for success, dedicated time blocks, and make sure that you know exactly what you're going to do the next day. Now, getting back to the literature review, an important thing that needs to be done is for you to look at a few examples. So that's part of your planning. Go to your there's a on the Research Masterminds website. There's a blog post that I've put together, and you can find it easily if you go to researchmasterminds.com. Now, how to find examples, um, and there's a few universities, but you can also Google PhD thesis or dissertation examples. The ideal is that you find examples from your university and in the field that you are doing your PhD or master's in, so that you make sure that you get an idea of what their requirements are. I mean, if you have the examples of completed thesis or dissertations, that can help a lot. Now, I know sometimes we feel uncomfortable, but aren't we stealing other people's work? No, you're not going to copy and paste any of their work. You are going to get inspiration from what they've done. You're going to learn from what they've done. And once your PhD thesis is done, it's going to be uploaded on a repository, and others are going to use your PhD again as inspiration. So we never copy, we just learn from and get inspired by. So here's another Yale University. It's a resource that Yale University have put together about where can you find examples of completed theses and dissertations. But to avoid us going through a rabbit hole already, I'm going to close these and let's see what we have done for our in SciSpace. So now you've got your blocks of time, you've looked at examples, which means you know what a literature review should look like. The next thing is to create a structure or outline of your specific literature review. And then after that's done, after you've got an idea of what headings do you need, what subheadings do you need, you are going to apply the heading styles function so that you can use the navigation bar inward, and then you're going to populate those sections. Okay. So before, this is a good point for you to put away your computer, take a blank piece of paper. You can, if you want to, prefer to draw on your iPad or on your screen or write on a Word document, that's perfectly fine as well. Depends on how your brain works. But the idea is here that you take a blank piece of paper and you write your research question at the top. And then from there onwards, just take 10 minutes to think of topics that you would like to include into your literature review. Now, why do I say you should use your brain before you ask your assistant to assist you here? Because sometimes, as soon as we get the assistant's output, we are so blown away by, whoa, this is amazing. I can use it as is, that we may miss some important topics that we would have fit in if we didn't think of if we didn't look at the output first. So I would say just write down topics, everything in your outline that you think, what are the headings that should fall under the headings and subheadings that should be put under your literature review. And then you can go to the agent and go ask it for an outline. Okay. But also, um, you've done your topics, and before you now formally ask the agent, and I'll show you how I've done it, a good idea is just to get an idea of what's the area like? What is the research like? Now I know if you've put your proposal together and you've done a lot of reading already, maybe you already know what the the landscape is about. But I would suggest that you start there. So you've got your draft outline that you've put together, then keep it safe on the side. Go to the SciSpace literature review function and ask it. I'll show you what it looks like here, and ask it to give you a deep review of your research question. Now, I'll show you what I've done. So you type in your research question here. I've typed in barriers and enablers, but I've already done it just to save some time. Make sure that you click the deep review function, because this is where SciSpace is going to go all out and search all papers all over. Here's what I've put together just to show you. Now, the idea here is from this deep review is that you get an idea of what the landscape is about. So my study is about barriers and enablers for university healthcare collaboration. So this is the report from 50 highly relevant papers that SciSpace has created. Now you can see here it gives a lovely table of contents, and this is a brilliant place to begin to get a proper overview of what is the field all about. You can read your abstract, but what is really good as you are reading through and you find a study, and this is one of our this field that I'm studying in, this is the study that is the closest to the study that we are doing, which is amazing because SciSpace picked up that, this, let's reference this very first one, because this is the paper that's very similar to what we want to do, although there's slight differences. Now you can see I've clicked on it. I've clicked on this Williams et al., and it opened the paper here on the side. I'll get back to the full report just now. Now we have this specific paper, a whole screen only looking at this specific paper, which means as you read through the report, I'm going to go back to it. As you read through the report, and here we're going to click read more just now, you can study specific papers. So as you go and you get an idea of the overview, you don't have to delve into the papers now. You can just read through the report and get an overview. But I want to show you how super amazing it is that you can delve into it. So let's say this Williams paper was a specific paper that was really interesting to me. I can listen to it as a podcast. I'm a physiotherapist, and I do believe that people need to move often. So if you want to do your quick few squats, listen to it as a podcast. And I don't know if the sound will come through, but try it. I would say try it on your own. Where there's this podcast voice, it's not a boring voice that goes and read through the paper. It's a podcast voice that just almost talks about the paper so that you can get an idea of what it's all about. So here you can get the PDF. And then in the olden days, and I need to think carefully how am I going to change my practices, um, we've urged students to create a table in Excel or in Word where they list all the different studies that they found, the author, title, the year of publication, the methods, the results. And it is still, if you prefer that manual way of listing your studies that you've included, it is still a very nice way to go about it because you have all the papers there and you can quickly see, oh, this study was used for validation, I can refer that. Or this study mentioned the importance of age in low back pain or whatever. But what SciSpace provides us with is the opportunity to save our articles. So let me show you if I choose a one that I haven't saved yet. This is now also one of the, I've just clicked on one of these studies and it took me to a separate page. This is Newington, also a very relevant study. And you can choose where you want to save it. Now I've got a folder here, collaboration study, which means that it's going to put all the papers that I feel is important to my collaboration study in one spot, which you can access afterwards in your library. Okay, let's see what else you can do. Again, you've got your podcast, you can go to the PDF, you can go to the cite option and ask it to cite it in your style or export it as um, BibTeX file or in Microsoft Word, um, so that you can import it into EndNote. Um, let's see what else. You can share it with somebody. Oh, of course, you can report it if you really want to. But what is nice is you can chat with this paper. So as you go and you want to find out more about this study, um, you will ask it maybe what was the, because you're writing a literature review, you may want to ask it what was the limitations of this paper so that you can maybe position it better and highlight those limitations in your literature review. And you can get a quick idea of the different limitations. And here it shows you that it comes from this paper. And you can see where in this paper it features. See from this PDF, from this paper. So you don't have to worry about it making up its own limitations. You know that it's from this specific paper. And here it gives you some suggestions to chat with the paper. You can also, if you want to take it further, you can ask it if you found, like, for example, I told you that this Williams was the perfect paper. It's the paper that's closest to what we are doing. Now, if I want to find similar papers on Google Scholar, PubMed, or Archive, you can ask the agent to go and find you similar studies. And that makes it so much easier because, I mean, in the years of Google Scholar and all the databases, and I'm not saying don't search on them. Be safe and do your searches on them. But the days when we only worked with those was really difficult because we struggled to find all um, the papers that's really relevant to what we are doing. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that break. Sometimes I get so excited about things that no, I need a quick break. Okay, so this is what you can do when you're diving into a specific study. But let's get back to our report. Now, our initial instruction and initial idea was to really just get an overview of this field. So I clicked on the button that said read more, and this is the full report that SciSpace is giving me. And again, you'll see that it is pages and pages long. You can save it to your notebook. It's saved to my collaboration notebook, but it's brilliant. You read through it, and it almost feels like you're reading somebody else's literature review. So somebody else have already prepared a literature review for you that puts together the bits and pieces from different papers. Now, this is brilliant to get an idea of it, but I will never not read the papers and not open the separate studies that is needed that you are going to reference. Remember, if you are referencing something in your literature review, you are stating that you've read it and that what you are saying and putting the reference behind the statement, that you really know that that statement belongs to that paper. So always find the original papers, download them, save them in your folder, um, and make sure that you've read them. So this is very good. You can read through it. You get a brilliant idea of what the scope is about, what the barriers and enablers are of health collaboration, which is my topic. Um, and you can see you go on and on and on. And this is always the best part when it gives me these tables, because in the table you can see again, Williams is my favorite paper, and you can see what models have they used, the organizational context, what information have they provided. I mean, yeah, it already gives me a few ideas of the barriers, limited protected time. I mean, the game comes out so much, but you get a good idea. And you know what is brilliant? Before you have your next supervision meeting, if you go through your topic like this before you meet with your supervisor, it just opens that conversation because you'll have so much more to talk about. A few months ago, I've done the same session on how to write the discussion, and it was also um, very well received on in terms of how can we use SciSpace to help us get ideas of what to discuss. Okay, now we're busy with the literature review, so let's focus on that. So you have your table, and you can see that it goes on and on and on and on and on, um, with lots of research that you can work through, and you get a good idea of all the studies that's involved in this area. Of course, I think this report only give us 50 highly relevant papers. There may be more relevant papers out there. So as you find very appropriate studies, go to that AI option that gives you more similar studies, that search for similar studies on Google Scholar. So this is just a starting point, and it's a brilliant starting point. And from here, you can go to the next step and to the next step. But here as well, barrier typology, facilitate aggressive stakeholder perspectives, and it just gives you more information. And you can see we're only here on the bar. So brilliant. Again, if this is part of your planning to really get a good overview of where we are, I would definitely say take out 2 to 4 hours and make sure that you really get a good idea of the field. Now let's see where we are on our list. So you do an overview of the topic area and you save your studies so that they are nice and safe. Um, and then it's time to go to the SciSpace agent. And now you've got your outline because as you went, you had your brief outline because you know plus minus what your topic is about. You've read through the initial report that SciSpace created, and then you could add to that outline by because now you've got lots more insight into what are the barriers. You know, what do you want to say? If there's organizational barriers, there seems to be individual level barriers, and you build out your outline. But now it's time to get your AI agent in, your SciSpace agent, to come and assist you with an outline. And that's where I've pulled in the agent. Now, we've used literature review for now. Okay, so this is a very specific function. But if you go to home, this is where the agent sits. Now, this is your true research assistant because look at what it can do. You can build your task. You can say, I want to literature review, I want to do use a deep review, and the output should be a PowerPoint presentation or a PDF report or an infographic. So there's so much that you can do. So you can put your own instruction in here, and that's what I've done. But you can also tell it what it needs to do. Review my writing, write a report, find data sets, find grants, create a poster. There's just so much you can do. And I've already created, worked with the agent. When you work with the agent, you're going to give it a prompt, and then you're going to um, make a cup of tea. Sometimes it takes 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on how complex it is that you asked of it. Go and make a cup of tea. Again, do a few of your squats, and then come back, and then you can review your report. So what I've asked it to do was, sorry, this is now way up there. I wanted it to give me an outline. So by now, I know what the landscapes are about. I uploaded the barriers and enablers report that I got from the literature review. So I downloaded that, saved it safely in a folder, and then I uploaded it to the agent. And I said, I'm creating a literature review for a grant application based on the attached. The aim of the study is to explore the barriers and enablers to university NHS trust collaboration, specifically in healthcare. Give me a proposed outline for the literature review. Now, whatever instructions you give it, you can also add a structure. So if you would like to, you're developing a methodology, you may want to give it the consort guidelines. Or if you're doing a literature review, you may give it the Prisma guidelines. So you can give it a structure to say, work according to this structure. I didn't give it a structure because I just wanted rough outline topics to see how it fits with what I'm planning to do. And it has given brilliant, it's given main themes and topics that needs to be covered, barriers and enablers. You can see here It gives me barriers to collaborations, the main topics that it thinks I need to cover. It tells me organizational context and leadership is important, something that I may not have thought about when I've put together my own outline. But there may also be things that's in here that I did think about, like for example, enablers, um, or maybe there's things that it missed out on that I thought is important, and you're working with it to create your topics. But here you can also see these. It's got this will end up being a main heading in my literature review, and things like time constraints or lack of organizational support, those things will be subheadings. And under those, I'll add a paragraph or two to give a bit of the background, show the gaps, and show the importance of it. Because remember the aim of a literature review. A literature review is not a lecture that you give somebody. You don't give that you don't put a document together to give somebody a lecture on this is the background of the study only. It does give background, it's very important, but a literature review is there to highlight the problem statement, so to highlight the problem areas, the gaps in the literature, and why it's a problem that there's gaps, and to highlight the significance or the importance of your topic area. So keep that in mind when you put together your literature review. You don't only want to teach somebody about the topic. You are teaching them, yes, because you're giving a background of it, but in the process you are highlighting those gaps and emphasizing the importance. So here you can see it's also unpacked it. It has got the main theme. So here I can already get a lot of topics that I can add to my outline. It's covered, and then it's broken it down into the key barriers, enablers. And again, won't use the headings as is because I'm going to merge it with my own ideas. But one thing that is really truly nice of this agent as well, if you prefer to see things in graphs and graphics, you can ask it create an outline in a diagram format, and it can create a spider diagram or something that's a bit more visual if you prefer to work in a visual way. I've created a diagram lower down. I'll see if we're going to get to that. Okay, so this is your topics. So it's important to create those topics, and here it's got your proposed literature review outline. So here it even tells me how many words I should use. Now, you know how long your literature review would be. So I would disregard this because I didn't tell it how many words it should use in total. So um, don't worry about this. You're going to make up your own. But it's good that it gives you a bit of an idea. And the introduction and rationale will be a bit shorter, and the background, whatever. It's good. But use your brain when it comes to this. Then let's see where we are. So we have created our own outline. You looked at examples, created an outline. You got headings that you've created in your Word document, and you've applied the heading styles function. You you have to find your knowledge sources, which we have done when we found those specific studies. We've saved them safely with processing. I mean, save them um, proper file names on your computer or save them within the SciSpace environment. You can also do that. And then you're going to go back to your structure now that you have an outline, and you're going to refine your own structure. So that's where we've used the agent. Now you've done all your planning, and I know a few hours have passed by the time you get to this point. But don't you feel much more comfortable now that you've got your headings in Word? Now it's a matter of populating this space underneath each of those headings, and your planning is done, and it's much easier to avoid those rabbit holes if now that you've done the structure. So now it's time to execute it. So we've planned it, and now we're going to execute it. Now let's see. I would suggest approach one section at a time. Know how long your literature review will be. One of our recent PhD students created a lovely, beautiful literature review of over 50 pages. And we had to suggest to her, listen, narrow it down slightly. It really needs to be contained. I won't give you a page range because different institutions have got different guidelines, and even between supervisors and topic areas and fields, it differs. But do get an idea from your supervisor how long it should be. And the reason why I'm saying this is that you can go do such a deep dive into one specific um, subtopic area that you can create a literature review of one subheading in your literature review, which means that you're just going to waste unnecessary time. So know plus minus how long the entire literature review should be, so that you plus minus have an idea how long each section is going to be. So that's just from a practical point of view. I know we always say, um, yeah, but it depends on how many papers there are and so on. That's very true. But you can easily just go down that rabbit hole where you create 50 pages on one subheading, which is about age and low back pain, while a half a page would have done the job. So just figure out that as well before you get going. One section at a time, you read what is relevant, and you know now how to read papers using SciSpace. You interact with them. Of course, download the paper always, save it on your computer. But that interaction that you can do using SciSpace is really nice. It's I find it just a bit more exciting than the olden days where you only sat with a paper. And the reason why it's exciting is let me quickly show you this as well. There's a the fact that you can interact. So I've shown you can ask questions and so on. Of course, have the full paper. Make sure that you know where it comes from in the paper. But if you found a study that's not on SciSpace, a friend have passed on a paper, or you found it separately in EBSCOhost or on PubMed, you can upload it onto PDF and chat with it. Another very nifty tool, which just means that your own papers can be uploaded and you can save it in SciSpace and you can chat with it. Yeah. Perfect. So you read what is relevant, you know how to read it now using SciSpace. Um, then get something on paper. You have got your sections and just start off with free writing. Free writing. I know I say writing, but it can be typing. So put away things, tackle that age and low back pain section, for example, first. And because you've read a whole bunch of papers around the area, you can just type what you want to say, just free typing. And then you can go back and you can insert your references. So you get something on paper, you revisit what's on paper, you deal with writer's block, which happens, I promise you, especially when the excitement of building this framework of the literature review is over. That's where that writer's block steps in, because then it becomes the mundane, oh man, section by section, and there's so many sections that needs to be worked through. How you deal with writer's block, you close your laptop for a bit, you go and do something else, and you make yourself that rule of 5 minutes. If you struggle to get back into your work, give yourself 5 minutes, and you tell yourself, I'm going to work for 5 minutes, and only 5 minutes, and you set your alarm to say that I'm going to work for 5 minutes. And most often, once that 5 minutes is over, you are settled in and you are ready to go for the next 2 hours. If you're not, you give yourself another 5 minutes. But the fact that you give your brain smaller goals is often very makes it easier and breaks down that barrier of the mountain of work that you need to do. Another way to get over writer's block is to break down your task into smaller tasks. And I promise you, as small as write an opening sentence for the next 3 paragraphs, or insert 4 references related to age and low back pain. Always differentiate between being meticulous and perfectionistic. Being perfectionistic is making life very difficult for us. You need to be meticulous, you need to have high standards, and you need to cross your T's, dot your I's, make sure that the piece looks really and reads well. But if you've read through it the fifth or 10th time and it's holding you back from clicking send to your supervisor or clicking submit to wherever it needs to go, that's when we are becoming perfectionistic. And perfectionism should not stand between us and completion. Okay. Back to the agent. Because we are now populating the specific sections, and let's see what else the agent can do for us in this point, because now we need to unpack the different sections. So let's say one of our sections are on, oh, what I've asked here from the agent. I'm going to give you a bit more detail now, because I've unpacked one of the sections through the use of a table. Um, so we now need to use the agent to help us write each of these sections. They won't write it for us, but to give us the right information for us so that we can write the specific sections. Now, one of the sections I will put under my literature review is around research capacity building initiatives. And I've asked it, I've given it the prompt that said, it's somewhere down here. There's many, many things that I've asked it. Um, so I've given it a detailed prompt, and the more detailed, the better. Um, Give me a created table exploring capacity building and skills development in relation to healthcare context in the UK and also internationally. Include the following columns in the table. We want author, study title, link to the study, the aim of the study, the methods, the participants, and capacity building initiatives and impact indicators. So I wanted to create a section on this capacity building initiatives that people are using and the impact indicators. Now here, I see it says authors not listed, but it does give us a DOI or a link to the study. So you can find the study and um, search back for it in SciSpace. But here we have got a table that just gives us a bit of an overview of what is it. It's the aim of this is a scoping review. Here we have the method used, the participants, well, lots of studies. And here, this is what I'm interested in. I wanted to see what other people are referring to when they talk about capacity building initiatives. And I also wanted to find out how do they measure impact. And here they have the following activity building or skills, activities, interventions, programs were implemented, an internship, brilliant, something that we've also considered in our institution, critical appraisal workshops, research training workshops. So this is very good to add into my literature review. And here it's got impact indicators. How do other people measure the impact of activities? You can learn lots from here. Now, if you can do the same thing if you are in the literature review. See, where's our literature review? Um, here we've done the literature review, and that also created a table. So I can add here uh, do a very specific, create a new literature review and do a very specific study where I only ask for research capacity building initiatives, which means that I will get a whole bunch of papers only on research capacity initiatives. But in this literature review, I can also go and create a new column and ask it to highlight, for example, the limitations, or create a new column on uh, give me the specific impact indicators for each of these papers or the initiative, the capacity building initiatives that people use to overcome the barriers and enablers that they have mentioned. So there's ways to, in other words, unpack each and every section, tackle one section at a time and unpack it using SciSpace. And then remember, this is a literature review, so it is important to have a bit of the critical appraisal aspects. And you can use SciSpace to identify those critical appraisal aspects as well. And I would use either a create a new column, or you can go again back to your agent and ask it, what are the limitations of these studies? And it will highlight those limitations. Remember, you always have to go and verify. So, for example, in one of these, we've highlighted the limitations, um, but always go and make sure that you have read the paper, that you have read the context in which this was highlighted in the paper, and don't blindly just cite from any program. So do verify that you make sure that that's what you've understood as well. But those limitations of the studies need to come out. The limitations, the critical appraisal, in other words, what was the weaknesses of these studies, which you can also pick up by just reading it through, but those are important to be emphasized. Our next step is about polishing it. Now, and you have to check the references formats. Now, you can insert references as you go along because you can export them, or you can ask the agent for a .ris file. Now, I haven't used it yet, and I would definitely recommend you try it out because that agent can do anything. And you can then import that RIS file into EndNote, Zotero, or any other file if you get that done. Review you're going to now polish it. So we plan it, execute it, polish it, review your paragraph structure and flow, check the format of the references, and then put your document through, turn it in. Now, I know if we use AI the right way and we use our literature the right way, we don't have to worry about AI detectors. We don't have to worry about Turnitin, but do put it through Turnitin to have a look at your similarity index. I won't even recommend that you use AI detectors because you are going to use it the right way. We're always worried about accidental plagiarism, where you maybe copy something into your paper, you put it in a different font just because you want to use it as a bit of a reminder that later you're going to change it and not use it as is and remove it. But accidental, and you know that innocent plagiarism does happen. Okay, so no copying and pasting ever. Just be safe. And then lastly, celebrate it. That's an important step because you have worked hard on your literature review. And what we often do is we achieve a goal and then we let go and we are ready for the next goal. Do make some time to celebrate, whether it is taking an afternoon off, going for a walk, doing something that you enjoy. Okay, let's open the floor to questions because there may be a few questions around this.